Alright, I've spent an entire day thinking of this movie, and I'm finally going to talk about it because I finally have my thoughts in motion, and I really just want to talk about this movie as a movie and not as like my first thoughts. I've thought about this movie the entire day, and I've really made up my mind of what I think of this movie. But guys, it's finally happened. We got another Star Wars movie! We got The Force Awakens. It's finally here. I can't believe I'm saying that. It's been 3 years since it's been announced. Lucasfilm was bought by Disney, and now they're finally releasing the movie. I can't believe it still to this day. I've watched the movie, and I can't believe I get to say that. And guys, I'm just gonna spoil it right now. It was a good movie. It's a good movie. This review is just gonna be me going on and on about why this is a good movie. And don't worry about spoilers, guys, because I'm not gonna have any of that in this movie review. I'm gonna have that in a separate video because I do want to talk about the spoilers in this movie because there's a lot to talk about. But I'm not gonna have any in here because I don't want to ruin anything for you guys. Anyway, since I got that cleared up, let's talk about the movie. Alright guys, so Star Wars The Force Awakens is directed by J.J. Abrams. It stars John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, Oscar Isaac, Adam Driver, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill, all in this movie. J.J. Abrams' direction in this movie was phenomenal. His long take shots, the long distance panoramic shots that he made, everything was looked realistic in this movie besides some of the computer stuff, but like other than that, everything was authentic, everything was real, everything was handcrafted by people to honor the original trilogy. So I'm gonna be really vague when I try to make a description for the story because I don't want to spoil anything, and there's a lot more going on in this movie than I thought there was going to be, so I'm going to say it like this. John Boyega's character Finn works for the First Order, who is pretty much like the new Empire from the original movies, and like they're a new upgraded version of stormtroopers and everything, and he's a stormtrooper from the First Order, and he leaves because what he's doing isn't right, and he finds this out like in his own way, and he's just like, what I'm doing isn't right. So he leaves and he meets up with Daisy Ridley's character Rey, and they go on a new Star Wars adventure. And in the mix you got Kylo Ren, played by Adam Driver, and he's not a good guy. He's pretty bad. That's all I'm gonna say about that, because if I say anything else, it might spoil the movie. So John Boyega, he's probably one of the newest names in the film. He was in Attack the Block, and I remember watching that movie back in like, I think it was 2011, and I thought he was a breakthrough actor in that movie. And when I saw that he got cast for this movie, I knew J.J. Abrams probably saw something in him, and man, oh man, oh man, this guy can act. John Boyega's performance in this movie got me so excited to see what would happen next for this rest of the movie, because this guy had a lot of emotion. His performance was amazing, and you could just tell by the way he looks in this movie, he's so excited to be part of Star Wars, and you really feel for his character. You really connect with the guy. Like, he wants to do the right thing, but he has his weaknesses and his strengths, and that's what makes him a really, really good written character. Now, moving on to Daisy Ridley, who plays Rey in this movie. This is her first big major role in Hollywood, and she did a really good job. I mean, this girl can act. I mean, every scene she was in, she just took away the scene from everyone else. She was the heart and soul of this movie. She honestly has a really, really big career ahead of her after this. And I have to talk about this. Harrison Ford, to me, was always Han Solo as a kid. I used to call him Han Solo because that's what I knew him as. I know he's Indiana Jones. He's the main character of his own movie franchise. But the thing is, Indiana Jones was never really my childhood movie. Star Wars was. And whenever I saw Harrison Ford in a movie, because he was in everything back then, I always called him Han Solo because he's always been Han Solo to me. Even to this day, I accidentally call Harrison Ford Han Solo. That's why I love the original trilogy so much, because they have Han Solo. So it just pleases me to say that Harrison Ford's performance as Han Solo is honestly probably the best part of this movie. I honestly wasn't expecting this performance from from Harrison Ford, because this guy, I didn't know he was gonna go all out in this movie. He was Han Solo from the original trilogy. He had his own like written character, and he still acted like Han Solo. Whenever I saw him on screen, he was Han Solo. He was still a scoundrel, he was still a nerf herder, he still had his awesome one-liners, and his connection with Chewbacca in this movie felt so genuine and felt so much like the originals. And Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher are back together again in this movie. And seeing Han Solo and Leia back together again, I thought it was going to be not done that well. I thought they were going to have one hug and that was it, just for the sake of having Han and Leia back together again. But wow, what they did with these two characters, and they're characters in this movie, and you get that they have history, they have a past. And it's honestly really beautiful at times. I was on the verge of tears when I saw Harrison Ford acting like Han Solo, because it's what's part of me as a kid. And when I saw Han Solo on screen, I saw Han Solo on screen, and it was awesome. And one of my favorite characters that I honestly have to talk about when I talk about this movie, Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron. This guy was awesome. I mean, I heard all like the interviews and everything. He's supposed to be like this awesome pilot in the rebellion, or the resistance as they call it now in this movie. But he isn't cocky about it. He's assured. He's pretty much known for being the best because he can do it. He doesn't just talk. He does what he talks about, and I love that in his character, and they wrote him so well. I just loved his character in this movie. Now finally, we're going to talk about BB-8. BB-8 was one of those characters where I was kind of afraid of what they were going to do with BB-8, because we've gone through the route of, you know, cute, adorable little creatures in Star Wars, Jar Jar Binks, and that didn't work out the first time. So when I saw BB-8, it kind of reminded me of Jar Jar from The Phantom Menace, and I was worried it wasn't going to work out. They did it right. They did it perfectly. BB-8 was such a great character. He was such a cute little droid, and he had his moments where he was just so awesome, and he had like, he just acted like R2-D2 from the original ones, and I love that, but he had his own original spin to it, and he was a great character. I loved it. My sister bought me this poster about over a month ago, and I didn't want to hang it up until I watched the movie, just to be disappointed and take it down if Kylo Ren wasn't worth being on my wall. But guys, this thing is going somewhere on my wall right after this review. This guy was bad, man. He wasn't just evil or menacing or scary or intimidating. He was all those. He wasn't just all that. He was motivated. He wanted to do what he was doing for a point, and you understand where he's coming from and why he's doing all these bad things, and that's what made him such a great villain. Adam Driver's performance as Kylo Ren was so great. He felt so villainous when he needed to, and he's not just a guy in a suit with a robotic voice, because he kind of is, but he's a human underneath all that. He's not a robot, he's a person inside a suit, and he's trying to do what he thinks is best, even if it means to do some of the worst things ever. This guy was a force to be reckoned with. Get it? That was awful. And yes, Kylo Ren is one of my favorite villains in Star Wars ever now. So if I'm gonna be seeing a lot more Kylo Ren things around my room, because that guy was awesome. And if I say anything more about him, it's gonna spoil the movie, and that won't be fun for you guys. But anyways, going on. Another thing I want to talk about, this movie has a lot of comedy in it. Like, there were some funny moments in this movie, and they weren't like forced in there like the prequels. The funny parts in this movie were actually pretty funny, and I love watching the actors having fun with it, because there was this ongoing joke with Han and Chewie throughout the movie that I don't want to spoil, and I loved it. I love the jokes and everything they made in this movie. And this movie was really, really fast paced. I mean, there's so many action scenes in this movie that there are slow times though. Like, they do slow down just to catch a breath, because they need to, because sometimes a lot of action scenes after an action scene doesn't work for most movies. For this one, it most definitely worked. And the thing is, this is a 2.5 hour movie, and to me it felt way shorter than that, just because how fast paced it is and how energetic and how just really good it is written wise. Now let's talk about the lightsabers. Now, you know there's a lightsaber battle in this movie because it was shown in the trailer. And in this movie, it shows that the lightsaber is a lightsaber from the original movies. Like, they're really throwing it at each other. They're really like hitting each other with force, and they're really thinking like, oh, I'm gonna kill you with this one swing I'm gonna do. It's not like the prequels where it looks like they're dancing the entire time because they're so choreographed that they're flipping around, they're looking at each other, they're like spinning around their lightsabers. And this one, the lightsaber was a force to be reckoned with. And I love that because it felt so old school. It felt like the original Star Wars, and I love that. Is this a perfect movie? Not at all. No movie is, though. The prequels have many, many flaws, but so do the originals. They have slight flaws that you just can't ignore, and this movie has those flaws too. There's some moments in this movie where you're just gonna think back to the original Star Wars, or if you like to call it A New Hope, I don't like to call it that, the original Star Wars, and it just feels like the original Star Wars. There's some scenes in this movie where it's just like, that's a scene from the Star Wars movie. And is that necessarily a bad thing? Not at all, but sometimes it could feel like it's like pushed in there just to be in there, but sometimes it's in there just to like reference it and have it there for like a really cool special occasion. And story-wise, this movie does have a couple holes in it, and those nitpickers out there are gonna pick out this movie from the end because the ending, I think, is the most broken part of this movie. There were a couple holes in this movie where it's just like, oh, you know there's a plot hole somewhere in this movie, and yeah, they're there. But does that make it a bad movie? Not at all. I had so much fun watching this movie. I almost teared up like 5 times, I'm pretty sure, during the movie when I watched it last night. It was most definitely the most exciting movie I've seen all year. And honestly, my number one, just because I had the most fun in this theater just watching this movie, just seeing Star Wars on the screen pop up, and it's just a great feeling. And even with its little flaws in the movie, it's still a great film that you could go and watch. I mean, it's a great film. It's not just a great Star Wars movie. If you don't know much about Star Wars, you could still go watch this movie and you'll still have a bunch of fun with it because it's just a great movie overall. Now look, at this point in time, I'm not gonna rank the movies of where I think The Force Awakens goes because I really can't right now because I'm rushing with emotion saying that, oh my gosh, Force Awakens is the best movie ever, but I've only seen it once. I need to see it a second time, maybe a third time, maybe a fourth time. I'm gonna be watching this movie a lot, that's the point. Speaking of which, I'm gonna watch this movie again tonight, and maybe after this one, I might make another video about my spoilers maybe sooner than I think I will. But do I recommend this movie? Well, yeah, I do. Go watch this movie maybe more than 3 times because this movie was so good. I honestly think this is my number 1 movie of the year because I had so much fun watching this movie. I love Empire Strikes Back. I love the original Star Wars. I like this one more than Return of the Jedi, but I'm not ready to rank the top 3. And do I think this movie is better than the prequels? Of course I do. I think I finally accepted the prequels because this movie, just like, it's a new Star Wars movie and it's finally good again. And those 3 prequel movies that they made, I'm just like, okay, they happened. I accept them now because I have a good new Star Wars movie now and I love it. Anyways, guys, if you like this video, please like and subscribe and share this around with a lot of people. It'll help me, it'll support me, and I'll really thank you guys. So see you guys, see you next time.